It's recap time. I bring you one more recap. A martial arts fighter gets involved with dangerous thugs by walking out of a fixed match. Today, we will be explaining a German film named 60 Minutes from the year 2024, which portrays the dilemma of a young boy who has to choose between his daughter's custody and his fight match. Hope you enjoy the video, so let's start. The film opens with the film's lead, Octavio, aka Octa, who is having trouble writing a birthday card to his daughter, Leone, during his warm-up session. As he's trembling while writing Leone's name on the birthday card, his gym buddy Cosima calls him out. He gets his mind off the card and gets back to sparring with Cosima and the other buddies. He displays epic moves and shows his buddies how real fighting is done. Subsequently, his match fixer, Paul, shows up and suggests saving some energy for the main match at the arena with Benko, his opponent. Octa disappointingly tells him that there has been a constant delay from Benko's side, due to which they're still at the gym practicing. Paul tells him the wait is over and that they have to show up at the fight as soon as they can. Octa puts on his jacket and goes back to his office to call his daughter Leone one last time, while Paul and Cosima wait for him in the car. He video calls Leone and apologizes for not showing up at her birthday party earlier, but he promises that he will show up at her birthday any time, along with a cake and a surprise. He ends the call when Cosima intervenes and begs Octa to talk to Paul about giving her a raise, since he had promised her to give her a raise 5 months ago. She also complains that Paul hasn't given her money from the last fight, which is why she wants Octa to talk to Paul because he doesn't take Cosima seriously. Octa promises her he will talk to Paul after the fight and walks to Paul's car. As Paul drives Octa and Cosima to the ring, he takes a look at the birthday card in Octa's hands and jokes about writing the letter as if he's sending the card to his landlord instead of his daughter. The short-tempered Octa rages out and hits the dashboard. Paul understands his pain and tells Octa that no 19-year-old should have to stress about coping with his ex-partner, looking after a young daughter, and focusing on his fighting career simultaneously. Soon, the trio heads to the arena's parking lot, where Paul purposefully pumps Octa up by accusing him of being scared of Benko because he wants Octa to stay aggressive in order to win the fight. At the end of the pumping session, Octa gives Paul a cat shelter address and tells him to pick up a cat named Onion for his daughter's birthday, as he's already talked to the shelter people in advance. Paul gets disappointed and tells him to not discuss such matters in order to stay pumped. Following this, Octa and his fellows stop by Octa's poster in the hallway to take a picture. In the hallway, some goons surround Octa and wish him good luck on the fight, while also revealing they have bet on him. Octa witnesses Benko passing through the same hallway and becomes angry at seeing his face. He ends up pushing away the goons that were positively supporting him and walking away from them. Paul then takes him backstage, where his hands get bandaged and his pulse rate is checked before the match. There, he receives a call from his ex, Mina, who is infuriated by Octa's non-stop negligence towards Leone. Mina calls Octa to let him know Leone hasn't eaten anything and is waiting for Octa to show up with her birthday cake. Octa promises that he will be at the party by 7 o'clock, but Mina reminds him that his parents are to come by 6 o'clock, so she cannot have him come late. She then calls him out for never showing up for Leone and hangs up on Octa. Octa rages out and smacks his chair against the wall, hearing Nina's threat. Clever Paul barges in and tells Octa to shift this anger towards the match and take his frustration out in the ring with Benko. Following this, Cosima walks Octa to the ring and tells him to use specific moves to pin down Benko. There, he gets another call from Mina's number. Upon picking up the call, using voice activation on his phone, he finds out Mina's lawyer is on the call. The lawyer speaks on Mina's behalf, warning him to come to the party before 6 o'clock, or else he will lose Leone's joint custody. Octa becomes furious and starts cussing at the lawyer. Mina takes back her phone and tells Octa that she's been looking after Leone all by herself, ever since the day she was born. According to Mina, Octa should not have Leone's custody when he can't take on the responsibility to look after Leone. Octa loses his mind over the revelation and decides to get back to Mina's home instead of playing the match, since there is only 1 hour left to make it till 6. When Paul finds out about this, he tries to stop Octa in a panicky manner, but the water has already crossed the bridge. Octa pushes him away and walks his way out in a very stressful mood. In the hallways, a thug named Chino and his brother catch him leaving before the match and send their men after him. Octa runs and forcefully takes another man's Uber ride to run away from Chino's men. Paul calls Octa while he's still on the ride and requests that he reconsider his options. He also makes it up to Octa, saying he will get him more time and save him from getting disqualified since Benko was also delaying the match before. Octa complains about his acquaintance Chino's behavior and asks what kind of drugs he is on to go against him now that he's backed out of the match. Paul makes up lies and hides the truth from Octa. Soon, the Uber ride gets stuck in the traffic jam, leading Octa to get off the car and find another way. Chino's men spot him and run after him to catch him. After running around and dodging the goons, Octa finally gets cornered in a restaurant's back alley by Chino and his brother. Chino tells his men to carefully catch Octa without hurting him since he has a match to fight. Octa spectacularly fights the rookie men, but in the end, they all pin him on the ground and knock him out. When they put him in their car, he regains consciousness and beats everyone up. He gets off the car to escape, but Chino's brother blocks his way. He doesn't want to hurt him, so he stays back and calls other men for backup. When he walks away, Paul finally calls him and reveals that Chino had placed an illegal bet on him, which was worth $75,000. He also reveals that he had fixed the match along with Benko, according to which they were purposefully going to let Octa win so they could claim $75,000. He warns Octa not to involve himself with Chino's men, since it can be dangerous. Disappointed by this, Octa hangs up and calls Cosima to open their gym's front door. He runs his way to the gym and locks all the doors. Before he can explain why he's getting chased, the bad guys break open the doors and open an attack. Before fighting them, Octa warns them that he's called the cops, who will be here at any time. Now, the street thugs put up a fight against the trained martial arts buddies of Octa. When the buddies overpower the thug, Octa and Cosima lock themselves in the room. He begs Cosima to help him hold these bad men back while he escapes from the window. Cosima is desperate after not getting paid by Paul, so she demands from Octa a 20% raise for her work. Here, Octa reveals what his ex is pulling at the moment and requests Cosima pick up the already ordered cake and have it delivered to Leon's birthday. When Octa escapes from the window, Chino's brother takes out a gun and threatens Octa's buddies to end the fight. Two of the men chase Octa outside, but Octa taps on the cop's car window and scares them away. Unfortunately, he gets hit by a car, which causes him to yell at the man who mistakenly ran him over. The cops take notice of his behavior and try to talk to him. When he ends up insulting the cops, they arrest him and take him to the police station. Inside the car, Octa panics as the 60-minute window is slowly closing. As he asks the cops their route, a monster car hits the police car and crashes it. It turns out that Chino's brother has tracked them down and is here to collect them. However, he manages to escape and go to the cake shop, where Cosima is already waiting for him since she couldn't purchase the cake with her declined credit card. At the shop, Chino's brother shows up and smacks the cake in Octa's hand, making him angrier. Octa pins him down and throws punches at his face with full strength. Cosima pushes him away when Chino's brother starts bleeding. Octa runs away from there, but some acquaintances of Chino's brother catch him running away, so they run after him. When they are about to get Octa, a friend of Paul named Rico shows up on his chopper and gives him a ride, claiming Paul has sent him help. Octa gets on the chopper and speeds away, only to be trapped in a much bigger dispute between Chino and his Russian client Danica, whom Chino owes $500,000 to. Danica's translator ties Octa, forces Rico to leave, and asks Octa whom he's working for. When they don't get their answers from Octa, they call Chino. Chino frighteningly updates them on how he's close to catching Octa, but the translator tells him he has caught Octa already and that he must come to collect him. Chino immediately makes his way to the address. On the other hand, Octa realizes it's a setup when Danica leaves behind two gunmen who are told to ice him and Chino out. Octa tricks the gunman and runs away while still being zip-tied to a chair. He ends up in the subway station, where he gets a little girl's help to untie himself from the chair. There he gets a call from Leon, who is upset because he hasn't yet shown up. He tries to tell her he's traveling all the way to reach her, but she hangs up on him. When Octa gets off the train for his next destination, 3 of Chino's men are already waiting for him. He runs away from them and ends up in a bar, where one of the men stabs Octa in his lower abdomen with a broken glass piece. One of Chino's men finds this against the rule, so he beats up the guy for his mistake and takes the charge. He has a final battle with Octa, which takes many twists and turns. In the end, Octa beats him and walks out of the bar, only to find Paul tracking him. He immediately disconnects Paul from his smartwatch and tries to escape. Sadly, he falls down from weakness. Paul approaches him and apologizes for tracking him, claiming he's being threatened by Chino, who will take his life if he doesn't hand Octa to him. Furthermore, he tells Octa that Chino is a corrupt man who not only bet $75,000 on him, but he also took Danica's $500,000 and placed the money on your math, just so he could get a profit out of it. He tries to convince Octa to return and play the match, since he's the only one who can straighten this entire mess up. Octa breaks Paul's reality by telling how Danica's men tried to take his life and how there is a much worse twist behind all this. When Paul keeps insisting on his return, Octa feels betrayed, so he cusses at him and speeds away on someone's electric scooter. As 17 minutes are still left until 6 o'clock, he crashes into his parents' house to disinfect his punctured abdomen. He takes some pain-relieving meds and lies down on the couch, worrying about his parents. There, he gets a call from Paul once again. This time, Paul reveals that he was the one who rigged his match, claiming he was going through a huge financial crisis due to which he got involved with Chino, not knowing what consequences his actions would bring. He secretly wanted to solve the issue without Octa or Cosima knowing. Octa believes him and understands Paul's situation, but when Paul constantly tries to find out about his location, Octa realizes Paul is still compromised by Chino, so he cuts the call. With some time left on the clock, he goes out to pick up the cat he had picked as Leon's birthday gift. On his way, he calls Paul and tells him he's at the shelter and requires his help, knowing this will attract Chino along with him. He then calls Rico and rats out Chino and Paul's location, which is the cat shelter, because he knows the Rusains are after Chino for their $500,000. Now he heads to the shelter, only to find it closed. The guy working inside acts rude and doesn't allow Octa in, despite Octa's constant insistence on letting him have his cat. In the end, he breaks open the door and scares the man into handing him over to his cat. While finding the cat, he calls the cops and tells them to show up at the shelter with an entire SWAT team since there are 2 dangerous parties involved. He finally finds the cat he had picked for Leon and puts it in a gift box. He asks the boy for the back exit, and he tries to escape from there. Sadly, Chino is already waiting for him in the back with a giant crowbar. There, Octa surrenders when he sees Chino's sidekick assaulting Paul, who has brought them to the shelter under their threat. Chino holds them under his gun and announces that he owns them from now on. Moreover, the 2 will work under his wing and will do whatever he tells them to make money and clear Danica's debt because she's a dangerous lady. At that time, Rico and Danica's Russian goons show up. They open fire at Chino and the others, so they run into an abandoned structure. This causes Chino to have a mental breakdown. In a paranoid manner, he starts accusing Octa of ratting him out. Octa lies and tries to convince him he didn't call the Russians, but Chino knows he's lying. When the cops show up outside and open a crossfire at the Russians, Chino realizes it's all Octa's doing. Hence, he panics and opens fire at Paul's limbs. As Paul falls down, Chino aims at Octa's head and tries to shoot him too. Luckily, Cosima shows up out of nowhere and takes Chino down. She shows some outclass moves while taking Chino down. Seeing her enthusiasm, Octa gains energy and attacks Chino from behind. Sadly, when the 2 are combating Chino, Cosima gets kicked by Chino and falls off the fences. She hits the ground and passes out. Meanwhile, the now weakened Octa tries to fight Chino but fails. He also loses his time window when the clock ticks to 6 o'clock. Moments later, Cosima regains consciousness, climbs back up, and attacks Chino. Paul plays the final part by grabbing the gun and shooting in Chino's direction. Chino dodges the bullets and runs away, leaving the trio on their own. Now, Octa asks Cosima how she found out about all this. Cosima reveals she was finding Paul fishy from the beginning, so she had been stalking him, which is how she ended up here. Paul tries to apologize once again, but Octa tells him to keep his mouth shut, as he's still not settled by the thought of his betrayal. On the contrary, he appreciates Cosima's loyalty and claims a 25% pay raise instead of the 20% raise she demanded earlier. Cosima and Paul walk out in the front to seek help from the police, whereas Octa exits from the back and goes to Mina's place. Outside, he comes across Chino, who tries to come at him, but he falls down on his feet from weakness. Octa finally takes out the kitten from the gift bag and takes her to Mina's home. Sadly, he falls to the ground right outside Mina's house from weakness. The kitten runs away towards Mina's house, which gets Leone's attention. When she comes out, she finds Octa lying on the floor, so she runs to him and lies on his chest. She gets excited and emotional to see her father, so she lies down with him on the ground. When Mina comes out, she sees the kitten, which softens her heart and prevents her from creating any further scenes. In the film's ending, Mina's lawyer boyfriend tries to provoke her against Octa, but she ignores the matter, allowing the father-daughter to have their precious moment alone. I hope you liked the story recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.